Welcome, everybody, to another Microsoft Unboxed pod. This is episode 99. We're one episode away.
One away, buddy.
One away from the big 100. I'm your host today, Kareem and David. I'm joined by
David Allen. Hope everybody is hanging out, doing well, staying cool, because it's even hot here where I am. I know it's hot where you are. And hope all this inflation and price wars and I have not gotten you too far down. If so, maybe we can brighten your day with a little tech news.
Yeah, talk about hot. Prices are hot, but so is the news. We actually, we always we've come over here the last few weeks saying, oh, Microsoft's been light on news. Well, not anymore. This week was built, so we have a lot of Microsoft news regarding that. We also will be talking about, what else do we got in the show notes? Make sure I get everything. Desktops. We got the Snapdragon X2 Elite. Made another appearance, and it's going to be in hardware that we weren't expecting, so to speak. We also got some gaming stuff to talk about. There's a showcase at a Gears of War thing happening this weekend. We got some free play days because everyone tends to like those. We have a dire warning from IDC when they gave their latest quarterly projections on where PCs are going to be going. That kind of dovetails into another conversation we were actually just having off mic, and we may briefly go back into that. But most of this podcast, if you are here and you're listening today, is about Build, Microsoft's developer conference. They talked a lot about agents, but as much as we rant and rave about AI, there was other stuff that, we found more interesting, at least the two of us, which is WINUI 3. There's still emphasis on developing Microsoft or Windows first apps, despite, all the push for PWAs and unified code and whatnot. And we'll get into that. Foundry, what that is and why it's becoming a bigger thing for AI and Windows. How we were both kind of shocked about some hardware that came out. Microsoft leaked the Surface Laptop Ultra. We'll get into at least the specs that we do know about that. But more importantly, there was Project Solara, which, I think we talked about for 20 minutes during the presentation just alone, and how exciting and the potential for that little piece of hardware is going to be. And then I think I may just weave into the gaming portion. There was an interview that I just wrote about an hour and a half ago that Asha Sharma had at Bloomberg Tech, where she kind of, went and sat down for about 15, 20 minutes. It talked about the importance of exclusives, to stop apologizing, which seems to be the Phil Spencer motive of make mistake, apologize, and more about declaring, hey, we need exclusives, and we need to earn back trust and, just kind of doing what they say they're going to do and having a vision on what that is. So we'll briefly talk about that if you're into gaming. But again, if you're here, you're listening, this is the Build Podcast. We will start off briefly. We didn't really have a formalized weekly tech rant, but this is Microsoft. So there's always something to complain about. I'm going to let David take it from there. He had a brief one, and I'm going to join in.
Well, like I said, like you just said, this is brief, but I think it's important. Because we review things, we're lucky enough to have multiple PCs, and we're very blessed to have multiple PCs, especially as we were talking about off mic, with the way supply chains are and the way things are so expensive. Without review units, I probably wouldn't have multiple PCs. But what I do like to do is keep my PCs basically the same, and I keep one unit out for dev builds and the canary channel and all that good stuff to see what the new Windows features are, see what's coming, see what gets removed, see what gets changed, so I can report on it on the website and here on the pod for you guys. Well, to shorten this up a little bit, my machines that I use here for the pod and I use in my office for some other things are on the same build number, downloaded on the same day. I checked, Windows, I checked PowerShell to make sure I had the same build. So my question is, why are the features different? Why are the features different from one build, from one PC to the other, when they both have the same build number? For example, let me give you the easy example here. Your start menu down at the bottom has the search next to it, correct? Now, what Microsoft has recently done was moved Copilot into that search. Now, in my opinion, they did it in a stupid way. When you type in your Copilot prompt, it launches Copilot instead of just answering it there like a search. Folks follow what I mean. You start typing something in the search bar. Say you're looking at recipes. You start typing the word recipe. Recipes come up, right? They pop up right above where you're typing. That's where your Copilot response should be, in my opinion. So basically, they've turned the search bar into something to launch Copilot in a different window to make you look up. And then you have to switch your input from that search box to the Copilot window. Okay. That's not on my other PC. Not there. Doesn't work, doesn't happen. So what did I do? I re-imaged that PC. I reinstalled everything. I said, okay, I clicked something off somewhere, or, a feature, turn that off. I don't have that, and I don't know where it is to turn it off or turn it on. But I'm mad at Microsoft because things are different between two PCs. So I re-imaged that PC. Got it back to the same build number as the other PC. I still don't have Copilot down in the search bar. That's part of the, we talked about Android being fragmented back in the day, where you would buy one brand of device and you get a separate set of Android features versus another brand. Windows, Microsoft, hello. We talk about this, it seems like now on a weekly basis. One of us is ranting about something that Windows did at some point during this podcast. Get it right. The basic features should be the same. I get it. OEMs want things done differently. Got it. Different hardware, different specs, different needs. Got it. But the basic functionality of how something should work and present itself should be the same among PCs, assuming the build numbers, versions, etc. are the same. Okay, I think I'm done.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that because it's the same thing we've been ranting about. And I think it's the same problem that we've seen in general about the Windows Insider program, is that, they do this weird A/B testing, even though the idea was that, they came out and said, we're going to clean up the channels. We're going to make it more streamlined and make it easier for people to report feedback. And it seems like either they're still in the midst of the process of doing that, or that was just rhetoric once again. And I'm hoping it's the former. I'm hoping that they're still in the process, so that, again, it's one thing to be like, I'm on beta and, I have one machine on beta and one machine on the release or whatever. That makes sense. I would not have the same features.
Yeah, I would expect that.
Yeah, to have the exact same build number on both things means you should have the exact same features. If the idea was to A/B test that, you're further fragmenting that experience. If the goal is to get feedback, the fastest way to do that is to give people that. And if they come out in droves saying, no, just like David said, you've implemented Copilot the wrong way, you could do that much faster than to have half the people not realize that they didn't even get the new thing yet. And now you're still running that test even longer before you start seeding it out even further and then getting that feedback to say, no, we didn't want this. You've wasted time, in my opinion. If that's a feature that you think people are going to want, put it out there. 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to hear back from people saying, no, stupid, go away. But if you half that and you fragment that and then say, all right, well, some people are kind of complaining about it. Some people don't even really notice it. Let's start pushing it even more. You've already wasted that time. And so you get to that point where enough people push back and say, no, now you've hit that threshold. Get rid of it.
Guess what, folks? Apple doesn't do this. They never have. It's not hard.
Yeah. Granted, it is a little bit hard because there's so many different configurations and Microsoft has to worry about that stuff. I get that. But if your idea is to streamline the Insider program, do it. Be confident in what you're going to do. And your Windows followers will follow suit. Especially the Insiders. The Insiders aren't going anywhere. Those are the people that you already have bought in. Those aren't people that are saying, all right, now I'm going to drop, now that you've done Copilot incorrectly, I'm going to drop Windows altogether and go to Mac OS. Those aren't the people. The people that eventually leave are the people that have devices that aren't in any of the Windows Insider thing. And then they get a feature that they don't like because you've bungled all of the insider stuff before it even got to them. So that's our rant. We didn't really thought we had one, but we do, and it's Windows. With that being said, let's get on to the news itself. We got a Snapdragon, which was, I believe, the one that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I found this to be interesting and a little bit unexpected, to tell you the truth, because I know Lenovo did one. It looks like a little Mac Mini with the original Snapdragon. And I'm getting a note here that says an error has occurred. OneNote cannot sync this page. So if you will give me a second, let me get...
Sure. I'll filibuster for you while you're fixing that, because I still have my notes up. What we're talking about is the Asus...
I got mine back.
Okay. And then you can take it from there.
All right, what we're talking about here is the Asus Ascent QN10. So, let's see how long you remember that when it becomes time to purchase it. Maybe they just need to stick with the Asus Ascent, so maybe people have a chance to remember it. But what this is Asus is calling it the next era in computing for a mini desktop built on Qualcomm Snapdragon X2 Elite platform, delivering accelerated performance that's redefining ultra portables. That's your PR speak. This unit comes with 80 TOPS and NPU that we may or may not use. We're not really using those yet. But it says locks in AI experiences for running local LLMs and processing AI agents for your creative tool. Enterprise-grade security, the QN10 is ready for home, office, or full production environments. Now, without sitting here and continuing to read you the PR thing that they sent out, you're looking at a mini PC here that is based on the Snapdragon X2 chip. Now, why would you want a Snapdragon X2 chip in a desktop? Couple reasons. One, doesn't produce a whole lot of heat. You don't have to worry about cooling. So you get that mini PC form factor. It takes up less room on your desk. It takes up less room in the office. It's cheaper to operate if you're a large company buying these things and you buy them in bulk. The X2 has better GPU. The X2 is better CPU. The X2 is capable of doing rendering jobs. It's capable of editing photos. It's capable of the marketing team being able to handle their videos, being able to, manipulate their photos in Photoshop, do what they need to do for that. So my point in doing this was it's different. When a company can buy, let's say you're buying 100 of these. Think about the desk space that you save just by putting a little 6-inch by 6-inch box on a desk that is about the size of a Mac Mini, maybe a little larger. It supports multiple 4K displays, and inside of that, you're pulling less power. You've got plenty of ports. You've got enough PC there to do what most people need to do. Now, here's the catch. I know when the original Snapdragon came out from Lenovo, they did a very similar desktop. The price was $799, $899. It was in that range. There was no price listed with this. It's going to be interesting to see what price Asus puts on this. Does it make sense to buy the X2 desktops to put on your desk versus going, hey, I don't have to worry about potential incompatibilities with Snapdragon. I'm going to spend that extra $100 to make sure I don't have to worry about it, or next extra $150. So then you have kind of shot yourself in the foot. You no longer have a valid reason for someone to buy that over somebody else. I think for this to work, Asus has got to price it aggressively and make companies and consumers decide, okay, I'll pay less. It's powerful. It will edit my home movies. It will edit my YouTube channel. You got something neat there, something different. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just interesting that they are opting to put the Elite 2 into these desktops because for the most part, the pitch and the marketing for the X2 was uh, light, compatible, fanless, long battery life kind of stuff. It seems like none of that really matters when you have a system that's constantly plugged in, stationary, and
That's true.
can blow out air because it's on a desk, paired with a bunch of other things. You're not in like a meeting or a conference room or, somewhere where you need to be absolutely silent. So ideally, if the GPUs that are supposed to be as good as they say they are, as some, early tests have indicated, to your point, I wonder what the compatibility factor is. Again, if you say you spend $150 for the Intel version or the AMD version just to move that compatibility, or if it's just a snappier response. If you're running maybe Linux or something with the X2 chip. I am interested to do some follow-up to see if we get more of these X2 Elite chips into these desktops, and if it just becomes a default. Maybe over time, Qualcomm just keeps advancing and the compatibility becomes, less of an issue. I think they were saying that there are some X2 laptops that are out that are able to game at a high level with the X2 chip already.
I've seen some reviews of, some acceptable gaming. And when I say acceptable gaming, around 60 FPS, 1080p.
Right. And that's running just on the emulator. So maybe at some point, the compatibility doesn't even become a factor. And you just have something that, runs just like it would in Intel, and you would know the difference, except it's a little bit cheaper. With that being said, let's move on to our next topic, which I believe was the Windows sub system for Linux container that you want to talk about. I don't know how to even pronounce the Coriolis.
I was going to ask you how to pronounce that, because when I typed that in the beginning, I was like, I have no idea how this is supposed to be. So we're just going to call it WSL containers for now, because that's kind of what it all wraps around. That's kind of what it all wraps around and wraps into. And because I don't want to get into trying to pronounce this for you guys, but for years, building across Windows and Linux has been, as we said in the article, workflow purgatory. I have done plenty of it. It is truly workflow purgatory. Half your tools you expect to work are forward slashes versus reverse slashes. You get the idea. The commands are not the same. The syntax is not the same. So what do? You end up going back to Linux and you do what you're accustomed to, and you've got your test environment there, and you just kind of leave Windows out of the picture until you get to the end of your development process and have to do your testing. Several years ago, we know WSL, Windows System for Linux, came out, which kind of bridged the gap for that. You could load up a virtual environment of your favorite Linux distribution on Windows, and you could run basic things. They gave you GUI support. You could, run apps that required a GUI. But this WSL container thing really locks it in there. You get, your full suite of Linux commands. For example, for those that understand, you get grep, you get ls, you get cat, you get touch. No quirky Windows behavior. It works the way you expect it to. For those that are familiar with Docker containers, you get that virtual environment to be able to spin up your application, test it in that virtual environment so it doesn't impact the rest of your hardware. The demo pitch was cleaner containers that spin up instantly. You can apply policies to those. You can actually use these in your workflow on a daily basis. Like, for example, a web developer. The one thing a web developer will ask you for is a staging environment. But picture this. You're working with your team. Maybe your team uses Teams. Windows-based, right? So you're communicating, you're doing your thing, you're using Edge, you're using Chrome. But you really need to get into that development environment. But Windows can't. So what do? You slide over to a virtual machine installed on another box. You slide over to another machine on your desk, and your workflow gets separated between chatting with your team, getting files or pictures or screenshots from Windows to share with your team versus moving over to your Linux box. Now, you don't have to do that. Linux lives with full command set and containers inside of your Windows operating system, which will allow developers, and I'm using web developers as the example, to spin up virtual environments like a virtual WordPress installation, a virtual web server, to test these things. And guess what? You're on Windows, so your copy paste works. You can download notes. You can copy paste code. You can send screenshots. You can fully interact with your team or teams to get these things done. I personally have seen people beg for this for years because developers would always leave Windows to one side of the desk and would always have to slide to Linux to get this done, or to bring them up again, slide to Mac. Mac does this. Mac does this natively. It's nice to see Windows catch up. When this came on build, this really got my attention. This first thing that perked my eyebrows up. I'm like, finally, they understand. So I'm hoping they follow through with this. When it comes out, I will be the first one to test it. I'll let you know. But I could hear the cheers of Linux developers out there. We finally get our full virtualized operating system inside of Windows. Thank you. Please don't screw this up.
Yeah, my only note would be what took so long. I am not in the trenches like you are when it comes to developing every day. But it seems like when they introduced this, that this should have been, I mean, when did they introduce WSL? Like 4 or 5 years ago?
Well, I'll tell you, yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, because I can tell you, I shifted to a Mac because Mac has, full Linux compatibility. If you open up the command prompt on a Mac, it's natively Linux. I shifted to a Mac years ago for the simple fact of this.
Well, yeah, it was
is what was missing.
It was like part of the announcement of Windows 11. It's like we built this in there, and I was like, okay, well, it's, again, not being a developer myself, I thought this was like, what everybody wanted, and a lot of people cheered it on, but apparently it was a half measure. And I guess this is the other half. Well, you know what, Microsoft? Won't look a gifted horse in the mouth. I don't know what that even means, but congratulations. Keep at it. The next thing we got is actually just the totality of Windows Build 2026 recap stuff. We're going to be covering, that was part of it. That was one of the things I want to say early on. I was probably like the first, 10, 15 minutes of what was a 2.5 hour keynote. But here's some other things. Here's some recap stuff. And again, if you want further in-depth coverage of it, please let us know. We can do some individual videos, or you can go read the articles we wrote up about these on the website. But the first thing we have is Foundry in Windows. I myself, again, not being a developer, had looked that up. For those of you who are in the same shoe as me, but may be interested, I will kind of cover this, and then Partner David could tell me if I've missed anything. But what Foundry actually does, it helps run the AI models from Microsoft's OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, Mistral, what I think uses a French AI model that they bought as well. And there's over 1,900 models available. It helps build AI agents that can perform tasks, use tools. It's supposed to help manage everything. It lets teams test and deploy at scale. It provides a clean interface, but this is supposed to span across Azure, Windows, GitHub, and some other developing environments. Microsoft created it because it replaces the patchwork of single platforms that I guess were previously done beforehand. It's for app developers, data scientists, IT teams, as far as I can gather. Now, what's new and interesting, though, is that they have what they call instant models that run without setup. I guess that'd be great. Voice agents, routines, and I think routines, I feel like routines is actually kind of old. Agent-to-agent communications, connections to Microsoft 365 and Fabric. And again, this is supposed to be, the unifying layer for anybody who's developing, who needs to tap, their own, pool of data port it across, maybe a bunch of other sets in Azure, then take that data from Azure and then put it into maybe a testing environment within Windows, and then deploy it to whatever developing language that they're going to need to for whatever app they're creating. If I've gotten any of that wrong, please let me know, but you can take it from there.
Well, you did pretty good there, my friend, for somebody that doesn't develop. And to be clear, I don't develop every day. I would be considered probably by most a very rookie hobbyist developer, but what I have done in my past is, imported. But it's nice to see, how to equate this to something that somebody can understand. If a developer's ever used Google AI Studio, you cheered to see Microsoft do this. Because what Google AI Studio does is it's a place that you can pull up in a web browser and you have full access, assuming you have credentials and, that type of thing. You have full access to all of Google Suite. You can create your database. You've got all your language models there. You can select your language models. You can write your code. You can ask it questions. You can execute your code. And as of Google I/O, you can build your AI apps. You can build your apps natively right there inside of Google AI Studio. And this is kind of what Microsoft has done with Foundry. Foundry is a place where it all kind of comes together, where you can log in, pick your model, start asking questions, build your framework, and then when you're done, assuming you want to publicly deploy it, you can push that to Azure Cloud fairly simply. It will connect your storage, you can connect your databases, you can connect your authentication right there in the environment. I know a few weeks ago when we were just talking one day on Teams, this was something I brought up to you, that Google was ahead of Microsoft in this way. It's nice to see Microsoft finally bring it all together where everybody can get to it. Because last year at Build, we talked about it, and I noticed that I was afraid this year was going to be the same, but thankfully it wasn't. It felt very fragmented, like you had a AI piece over here, an AI piece over here, an AI piece over here, and the word Foundry was brought up, but it never pulled it all together. So when you were inside of that Microsoft environment, you've got their terminology, and you were trying to figure out, do I need this one? 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 Foundry pulls it all together where you can get in there, have an idea, start querying your agents. You can connect outside agents. Gemini can be connected to Foundry, for example. So this is nice to see Microsoft finally pulling all of the AI tools together, kind of like they do 365. Let's hope they don't get themselves involved in any licensing agreements like they have with 365 with Foundry. Charge everybody the same, pull it all together, let developers use it. This is where things get created. This is where we move forward. Microsoft provides technology, developers move it forward. Make it easy, Microsoft. Developers will move us forward.
Yeah. The other thing we got was, obviously this is Build, so some of the other highlights were developer optimized refreshes for, again, faster WSL performance, more cohesive power tool suite. I haven't seen that. I'm assuming that they must have shown that maybe in a later demo or during the sessions. Streamlined workflows in VS Code, better GPU scheduling for AI workloads, which again, I think is part of that thing that I don't even think we talked about yet, the RTX NVIDIA thing, which is big, but we'll get into that when we get into hardware. One of the stories we had was about Microsoft wanting developers to use, WINUI 3. And again, I chuckled a little bit because, the idea of developers taking time out to develop Windows-specific code seems so novel these days. Even though we had that whole developers kind of thing, it feels like, over the last 5 to 7 years, Microsoft has realized that people aren't developing just Windows specific. And so they tried to meet everybody, wherever they could for that. And so they said, here, try UWPs, try PWAs, try, we'll integrate different languages and all into one optimized thing. But there's still somebody who apparently has some sway within the Microsoft inner circle that's saying, hey, Windows is still a thing and we need to focus on that. So again, WinUI 3 is kind of being pushed. And I believe, let me see if I can find the story on that there are some sessions. Again, they didn't really talk about it on the keynote, but they have several sessions about WinUI 3. What are your thoughts on Microsoft while I look up this story, focusing or at least trying to get people to come back to, hey, Windows first kind of apps? Is that even a thing?
Kind of like Android and Apple, isn't it? When a developer develops, they go to Apple first because that's where the market share is. That's what people are buying. So, the thing is, people are buying, more Macs right now, it seems, than Apple PCs. So, they go develop for Apple first. Look at how long it took us to get Adobe Premiere, for example, that was ready for the Snapdragon chip. It's been on the Apple silicon for years. They got it first. So I get what Microsoft's trying to do. They're trying to say, hey, we're over here. We've got a good portion of market share. We've got the market share in businesses. People are signing those Lenovo contracts, those Dell contracts. They're getting they're getting those PCs in bulk. Let's go ahead and say it. Maybe somebody's getting a Surface somewhere in bulk. Who knows? Your field workers, I'm sure, are getting the Surface Pros and stuff like that. So, yeah, let's come back to Windows. Let's develop here first. Let's go to Mac second, because it used to be you went to Windows and then Mac. Over the past decade or so, it's kind of reversed. You do Mac and then Windows. So Microsoft's push to say, yes, we're important. But what I also heard in that, my friend, was they seem to be listening. That, there's a vibe there that I got. That they're listening to developers going, okay, if you want us in Windows, this is what we want. I promise you, the story I just talked about with WSL and, containers and Linux commands, Microsoft just didn't get up one day and go, okay, let's add more Linux to Windows. They got to push from somewhere to do that. That's why you're seeing these things in Windows.
Here's the other thing too. This isn't just, what non-developers might think of, like, oh, here's a set of standards and codes for UI and how everything should look on Windows. Most of this seems to be building agents with WinUI, so you get more data and faster responses through this. I think one of the sessions was called use agents to build WinUI 3 apps. So you'll have agents building the apps, but the other thing I think is modernizing existing apps with AI. So again, being able to instead of, I don't remember how developers were pulling in data and information in real time, but it seems like with AI, quote unquote, you should be able to do this much faster. It involves untangling dependencies, tracing data flows, and making changes without breaking production environments, which is another thing. So again, they're still saying, if you have an app that is a different code, old code, it'll still run in Windows, but if you develop with WinUI 3, you should be able to take all that current foundation you have, modernize it, and make it easier than starting from scratch. We'll see how this effort takes off, if people even listen to it, or if they say, you know what, I'm good with PWAs and just specific LLMs to do specific things that don't necessarily need to be Windows focused or Windows first, or leveraging any of the operating system to do it. Who knows? But I think it's cool. To your point, I think it is them listening. So we'll see where they go from there. Another story we got, again, I think I'd already talked about this, but agents are becoming the new app model. This seems to be not just a thing that happened at Build, but they talked about a lot at Google I/O. Again, agents may be the new code for LLMs/AI. I think when people hear the term agents, they tune down the hatred, the pitchforks come down, the torches kind of fizzle, and people dissipate, they move on, So maybe the industry is realizing that autonomous supervised software is, not as jazzy and enticing and as marketing as AI is, it may be the safer route for them to go in order to push very similar, machine learning, large language models to the public. What are your thoughts on the idea of just agents everywhere, agents doing stuff?
Sounds better than AI right now. I'll say that. But I think this is something we're going to have to get used to. I think agents are here to stay, and I think that part of AI we're going to have to learn to deal with, because there's always going to be an agent doing something, and I think maybe even we need to come up with a different term for agents, because when people hear agents, they think of customer service agents, and I think there needs to be a differentiation there. An agent is doing something for you similar to a customer service agent, but I think we need a different term there so people understand that this part of AI is off doing something for me, or this part of AI specializes in something like a coding agent, an image agent, a sales agent. We get what it is because this is what we do, but I think for consumers to understand it and maybe give it a better opportunity, maybe we need to name it differently, and it's going to be a big change. We're going through it now. That agent did that for me, and we talked about it last week. You got to be able to trust these agents. That's something else we've got to see. These agents have got to get people's trust. You can't wake up one day to half your files missing because the agent misunderstood you, or the agent went rogue agent. Your agent went rogue and deleted your files, plus deleted your recycle bin. So I like it. I think it's here to stay, but we've definitely got to clean up maybe some wording, some verbiage, some expectations.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think they are, this isn't only just for developers. I think, there was a big demo about, what was the thing called? It was a like Copilot agent that's supposed to be doing stuff on behalf of people. Oh, here we go. It was the Copilot autopilot. Is that what it is?
Yeah, autopilot. Yes.
Where it's supposed to be doing stuff on your behalf, essentially.
Yeah.
For the normies like myself. And so we had, I think they came out with, it's autopilots is what it's called, but that's going to be Microsoft's pitch basically to say, to get you addicted to using Copilot is, and again, this is part of the AI that I discussed, when I say we always live in a future where things are just doing stuff. That was the idea. Before, what we so far have currently had are just really intelligent chatbots that are able to, hoover up the internet and then regurgitate it to us. But the idea of having to prompt it to ask it questions was always the daunting task. When do you do it? When is it convenient? Do you do it by voice? Do you do it by text? Now, the idea is that scouts, there we go, that was the term, scouts, will do, will do this on your behalf. And that's where we start to get into the agentic and that future of like, oh, this is where AI becomes actually useful. Now, to what you just said about 2 minutes ago, we have to trust it not to be dumb. So that has yet to be seen. Microsoft, kind of gave some demos and stuff during the presentation, but that was the other big, I think, takeaway for consumers, prosumers in Microsoft world is that this Scouts thing will kind of take off, and we'll see. What were your thoughts? Were you happy for Scouts? Are you weary of Scouts? Or are you saying this is just maybe another, what was it called? Clippy moment? Is that what we're having?
I think we're kind of clippy. We're clippy-ish.
Clippy-ish, okay.
And what I mean by this is it goes back to that trust factor. Because I noticed it's not just Microsoft doing it. Codex is doing it, which is ran by OpenAI. Google is doing it. It's like, look, connect us to your services so we can do more for you. Well, that's kind of like letting your unknown friend walk in your house and there'll be a bunch of jewelry laying on the table and go, oh, I think you got 7, 8 pieces of jewelry there and 10 pairs of earrings. Well, I'll just steal this earring right here. They
Well,
won't
see,
recognize that it's gold.
even that, or it's more like letting your friend in and saying you have access to whatever, and you come home and they decided to try and bake a souffle and left all your dishes everywhere. And you were like, you know what? I didn't want a souffle. I wasn't even hungry, and now my kitchen's a mess.
And I think that's part of the problem. I think people will adopt this stuff, but they've got to see it in everyday task and see that it's trustworthy. I have not connected one agent to any of my tools, not one. You know, I see it in the Copilot window, connectors. I see it. Connect it to Google Drive. Connect it over here. We can do more. Nope. You know, I see it in Gemini. Connect it over here. Nope. Because I value my data. I value my settings. I value my files. I value my security. And if I am a little iffy on making that decision, and we have the, prosumer tech background, a lot of consumers are just going, yeah, click OK, it's now connected. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to tell it to log into my bank account, pull everything down, put it in a spreadsheet. Sounds reasonable. You wake up next morning and got no money. I'm not there yet. I can't trust that I can connect the pieces together and let an AI agent basically run your life, run your business. I'm just not there. I'm sorry.
Well, don't feel bad, because I think most people aren't. We have, and I guess maybe next time we'll do what do you call it? Like a stream during one of these events, so we can give our thoughts out as they happen in real time. But we have on stage, for those who are listening, if you're watching the pod, Microsoft, I guess Microsoft AI executive CEO, Mustafa Suleyman. And he's on here and he's talking about the 7 different Microsoft AI models that they also released and talked about this week. And they're supposed to be, upgrades to speech to text, speech to image, a more reasoned, thought-based one for researchers and scientists and anybody dealing with large data sets. They came out a bunch of them. I don't know all the details on those. We wrote about some of those, but I do know the overall theming is that Microsoft is, again, moving, I guess, relatively quickly away from OpenAI with these things. So you have Image 2.5, you have, I think it was Voice 2 Flash, Code 1 Flash, Thinking 1, Voice 2, Transcribe 1. These are all specialized models. And I think these might go over better with businesses when they don't have an all-purpose AI to worry about and try and figure out how to utilize this, but instead they are, given one model that does one specific thing over and over, hopefully routinely well, and they can see the ROI versus hey, we have this thing and we just kind of throw stuff at the wall. So this is, again, part of the overall theme of Microsoft fine-tuning, in addition to tokenizing, where they can deploy these large language models at scale versus just one all-purpose and hoping they can figure out a use case for it. What are your thoughts on these 7 new models? If you have any, if not, we can move on to the hardware, which I know you and I are itching to talk about.
Yeah, we're both itching to talk about that. But to your point, I think there needs to be, and I'll say this and put a button on it, there needs to be some condensing of models across the industry, because it's getting to be very confusing what model is used for what. You've got this version, that version, 3.5 CPQ, 3.5 CPQ with imaging, 3.5 CPQ that's .6 with videos. I just want to know what the model is. Let me choose what I want to do with it, ask it a question, and go for it. I will fault Google in the same way. Flash, Flashlight, Flash Pro, Flash Premium. Premium 3.5, Premium Pre-6, Codex. Let's get OpenAI in it too. Codex 7.1, Codex 7.2, Codex Opus, Opus this, Opus. Make it simple.
Well, with that being said, we also are going to get to the hardware, which again, this is the section that we both enjoyed. This was also the time that Microsoft decided to take the wraps off of the Surface Laptop Ultra. We've been seeing, I don't even know if we saw hints about this. No, not really.
And it can't, what day did build start? Build started Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, correct.
It came out because I did not text you. Do you realize how close you were to getting a midnight text? Because I had actually
it was like at 10:30. It was something about that.
Yeah, I had highlighted your name and then looked at the clock because I was like, they just announced something that we haven't heard of. We weren't expecting. They kept under wraps. I even looked to see if it was real, and it showed up on blogs.windows.com. I'm like, oh crap, this is real. So I decided to leave it for you and team so you maybe would catch it the next morning instead of texting you at like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. No, the big thing about this thing is that it obviously replaces the Surface Laptop Studio 1 and 2. This thing looks like a MacBook. It's supposed to be pretty heavy, but it's built with the NVIDIA RTX Spark. Is that what it is?
It's built with the Spark, and can I correct you on one thing? I have seen reports. We have not seen one yet, but I have seen reports that it is about half a pound lighter than the Mac Pro.
I think you're right. But I think it's as heavy, if not, of the Studio, though. So anybody who has a Studio 1, and maybe around that weight, but you don't have the awkward, like, double shelf thing. I enjoyed the design, but I get this. This is more uniform. But the idea is that the biggest selling point of this is the unified memory, 128 gigabytes that NVIDIA and Microsoft have coalesced to kind of utilize. And they've said that they've somehow especially tailored Windows to make use of this 125 or 128 gigabytes of unified memory when in use. I don't know exactly what they've done to it. We will get further details about it, but it has, I think it's a 2000 nit brightness or something like that on the screen, or maybe it's even more than that. It has, I think it's 1 to 2 terabytes of storage, but it's supposed to be ideally, we were talking off mic about these small computers. It's meant to be the laptop that can run these large language models in a laptop form factor. Now, Microsoft isn't the only one making these. It's just, they announced the Surface Laptop Ultra as the, flagship device, but there will be others coming out soon that will also make use of this NVIDIA RTX Spark chip that, again, utilizes unified memory. And again, 128 is the flagship configuration. They will also have other ones, I'm assuming 64 or something like that down the road for probably a cheaper price. We don't know what the price is. We do expect it to be more expensive. We'll get more details in the fall about this thing, but that was one. The other one was, and again, if you're just watching the podcast, they also have a desktop model. Surface, what was it called? I don't remember the name of the desktop. I apologize.
Wasn't the desktop one basically a dev box though in a way?
Correct. It is. You're exactly right. Yes, the dev box. And it looks kind of like if you just were to chop the top part off of an Xbox. What was it? The Xbox
Series X.
Series X. Yeah, the black one, the square box. You chop the top part off of that off, and that's the thing that you get. Again, this is all about utilizing unified memory. And this is where everyone kind of said, hey, this could be the Microsoft and partners M-series moment where they start to utilize that type of framing versus saying like you have different channels that have to communicate, and that's what slows things down and bogs down using these large language models. The other thing that we have, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about, this is the thing that kind of took our breath away, which is Project Solara. I'm going to let you go because I've been talking about it. Can you give people a brief idea of what this thing is before I find a video of it?
Yep, let me get it pulled up here in my notes, and I'll kind of give people an idea. Let's see. OneNote is acting up a little bit today, so give me just a second while I reload OneNote.
All right, and then I will filibuster while you do that. It is a picture a lanyard. It was the craziest thing. It's this little lanyard device that I think Satya Nadella had on him. He didn't really showcase it at the time, but it's part of a series of devices, small devices, that will utilize this new AI model as its operating system entirely. So some people will not necessarily need a phone or a tablet, but you can carry this thing around, and it does a lot of what you would get out of a phone or a tablet, but it's all AI based. You can take it from there.
Well, it's all AI based, and you can get things accomplished. It reminded me of the Surface Duo in a sense, the way, that it could have been something like the Duo, to where, let's say, for example, you need something answered, or you need a facial recognition for a key code. I could see, okay, use AI to recognize this person's face. You hold this thing up, wham, you're in the door. I could see it being used for that. I was struggling as I was watching this to kind of see what this could be used for. And I saw one demo to where you could actually put it on your desk in like tent mode. Imagine you're putting your phone in tent mode. If you've got a folding phone, where you could ask it questions, you would have your agents there with you, and you could interact with it via voice. I did not see something with a keyboard. Maybe there's some type of, on-screen keyboard or some way to enter things that way, but it seemed to be very voice and video activated. And I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see who adopts it. I'm interested to see who wants it. I don't know that this is a consumer device that somebody's going to go out and buy and say, hey, I want Project Solara in my pocket. No, because you got your phone in the other pocket. I get it. But I could see businesses using this and putting their AI agents, their custom AI agents on these devices and going, okay, you're on a road trip. You're on the plane. You're in your hotel. You're in the meeting, getting the contract signed. And you've got our AI agent with our data right there with you. Just pull it out, put it on the table, show it off, let people see it. Maybe you don't need your laptop for the meeting because you've got everything, accessible right there. Maybe you hook it up to, your hotel or meeting room Wi-Fi, connect it via your VPN. Voila, you've got access to all your company data right there in your hand, connected on your belt loop. Pretty neat little device. I'm interested to see where it goes.
And I think it's I'm focused on the device because it looks really cool.
Yeah,
but the thing is, it's what was the Windows CE? Is that what it was called?
Yep.
Compact Edition. That's basically what this is, but for an AI version, because they're showing on screen and during the presentation that you can embed this in headphones, earbuds, speakers, glasses, watches.
Well, this is the second time Windows CE has been around. Do you remember back in the day, the old black and white? They weren't Palm Trios necessarily, but they were just miniature devices that had basic input options to where you could connect them to a cell network and pull down text. Wasn't even images, but they ran Windows CE back in the day.
Yeah. Definitely. And that, like I said, that's to this point is as much as I am enamored with the device, and I'll go over it again a little bit, because they're showing on screen a desktop, which I think is by MediaTek. So imagine like what's a Google Home what is that thing called? Like the Google Home screen? Yeah. Imagine a small version of that. But it's the idea of this, again, AI focused operating system that can be formatted and reconfigured and useful beyond the traditional paradigms of here's an app, touch it, and it does something. This is more, again, to your point, it's supposed to work in conjunction. You could start something on your desktop with your AI agent and pick it up on any of these devices. So if I started deciding, say I work in, I'm a show writer and I needed to rework a script, and I started on my desktop, and I said, you know what, now I got to go over to the studio. And while I'm heading over there, maybe I'm just a crazy worker and I like to work constantly. I put it on my earbuds and I'm walking over to the studio and I'm telling this thing now, hey, retrieve the script that I was just working on. Let's work on it some more as I'm walking over there. But so by the time I get there, it could be done, and I could pull it up or forward it or send it off to, the executives for further approval, for final approval, so we can get the show going by the end of the night. If that's the kind of thing that you can do with this Project Solara, at least that's what it seems like. Now, to the device in my end, imagine, again, for those who are listening, if you've ever seen the movie Her, picture that, or picture any type of small lanyard you've had for any kind of convention, conference you've gone to. That's what this thing is in a small computer form. Or any of you remember the Zoom HD? That's what this thing looks like. And it's super cool because, again, you'd probably have to talk to it. So those of you who don't want to talk to it, that's one thing. I don't know if there's a keyboard in, like you mentioned before, it might be. But as far as the demo is concerned, there's a camera on it. It's got volume rockers for, obviously for maybe Bluetooth connection or just talking to the AI agent. And you can do a ton of things with it. But the more important thing, it may not be for us yet as consumers, but for the demos that they show, which is medical, healthcare insurance, you could use this thing to scan people's medication, to scan them in and check them into their beds for hospitals, or check them in for rooms, or see what, or you can scan a bunch of stuff from them instead of having them come in and fill out tons of unnecessary paperwork that takes hours to do, depending on what, whatever the crisis is. Patient check-in, I think, would be revolutionized by this in general, just being able to get all that information from a nurse beforehand, instead of her having to ask you and reading all the documents. She can just come in, get that code and be like, all right, I know, you need this, this, and this. There's, they have it in warehouses. You could use it if you're out on the field, if you're engineering or civil engineering, you need to take quick scans, visuals, and get, maybe some more accurate data on the survey that you're doing at the time. Again, this thing it hangs from either your pocket or your neck. And this is where I think it's different than some of the other ones, which I forget some of the names of devices that were promising to do this beforehand. This is over the last 3 years. There have been these tiny AI first devices, and I think they were geared towards consumers. And the idea was like, oh, you won't need your phone. You're just talking to this thing. This seems to be the good middle ground between having a phone and having this thing. And I think there's a future for it where people, if they move away from social media, which, it could be, there could be that. I think there are younger people, and maybe not my generation, maybe not, a generation a little bit older than us, but there are young people who are moving away from social media. And if the idea is that you want to be attached to it a little bit by saying, here, post this. The guy showed at the very beginning, he took a screenshot of the entire audience, told it to post on whatever social media platform he was using, and it gets some prompts on, like, would you like to add filters and some other things. He can do all that with his voice and then go about the rest of his day. I think there's a market for that. I'm going to end it there. If you want to add a note to it, then we can move on to our last topic and get people out of here. But I am very interested if this thing takes off. I think this is super cool use of AI if we're going to have AI in our life.
I think so too. I think, we're going to see it in industry, watching this video now for a third time. I watched it with you during the, and I checked into this afterwards, when I had a chance to process. It kind of reminds me of the old fashioned pager, in the sense that it's a modern day pager, in the sense that, back in the early 90s, you called a number and, this operator had magical powers. She could type a sentence at most, a sentence and a phone number, call, and it would hit your pager. That thing would buzz. This is kind of what this reminds me of, except it's interactive. And guess who's going to sell this, though? Cell phone companies are going to sell this up in the business division ASAP. They're going to put that business plan on it, and to your point, your doctors, your nurses, are going to be walking around with these things, and it's going to go further. We're going to have bracelets, medical IDs.
Yes.
If whether you want it or you don't, you walk in to your practitioner Well, make sure you put your bracelet on when you come. They scan that bracelet, and voila, they've got everything there is to know about you right there at the counter.
This is why I think it can take off, because they are now, imagine replacing the handheld iPad. And the iPad doesn't weigh very much. Doctors don't really complain about it. But imagine replacing that iPad with that thing. Now it just hangs from it, which they already have lanyards to begin with. Now that lanyard can check them in, and you no longer need to carry the iPad with you. You have your hands free to do whatever it is you need to do to help the patient out, talk with them, more bedside, manner, whatever. I don't, there are several industries where the iPad is taken off because of its flexibility, its utility, its accessibility around. This thing makes it even more accessible to have that kind of information at a job. And again, it's not a phone. So you don't need to worry about, confusing like, oh, my personal phone versus my work stuff. This thing is just a lanyard you put on to go to work, and it has all that information on it. And you don't need to carry out an iPad to check people in, to sign stuff, to okay contracts and any of that stuff. So I'm very bullish on this, but who knows? I've been wrong on it. I thought the Zoom was going to take off. So don't take advice from me. Last story we got.
I bought my Zune. In fact, I bought 2 of them.
Oh yeah, I still got my HD. I tried to kick it open. I forgot that it needed special Zune hardware because Zune software, because the hardware is amazing. Last thing we got, and I'm going to keep it short, keep it brief. The IDC warns that the PC market is about to see its worst decline still ahead. So we're going to end on a great note, everybody. We got the same sort of story that we have where it's memory shortages are going to be the core bottleneck. That there was an early 2016 growth, but the IDC says it's a mirage, that people went and bought a bunch of, or OEMs front-loaded all of their RAM purchases so that they could offer cheap prices or keep maintaining prices. That's going to soon run out over the next 3 quarters. Apple, they also predict that the Neo is going to reshape competitive landscapes because, again, Apple has shored up their RAM, at least for the rest of this year. So they'll be able to continue offering 8 gigabytes or different configurations at relatively lower prices for theirs, while a lot of OEMs like Microsoft, who forgot to, are now having to sell. I think they just talked about the Surface X2, whatever is coming out, and that's going to be super expensive. The Surface Pro 12, I guess, or 13, whatever it's going to be with the X2 Elite chip is going to be expensive. They offered those business laptops that went up in price because, again, they didn't have the foresight to say, hey, we need to buy up a bunch of RAM beforehand. So now they're having to pay, market value. A ton of OEMs are going to be doing that very similarly. So that's basically what the IDC is saying. What are your thoughts on this continued, RAM again, and this time it actually being real?
Doesn't surprise me. And to your topic, it's going to get worse before it gets better, I'm afraid. I think, people are going to be holding on to hardware. That's why things are declining. I don't want to hear Dell complain, Lenovo complain, Microsoft complain, Apple complain. Let's throw them all in a pot. I don't want to hear anybody complain about how hardware sales are down, because there's one thing here that comes to mind. These companies have to make money to survive. Any company does. You have to pay the bills. And declines are going on. Declines are very real this time. It's not just a sales slump. It's not just, okay, we bought them all last quarter. Nobody needs a nobody needs a PC this quarter. We'll come out with this piece of hardware, next quarter, and people will buy it again. They will upgrade. We'll get it all back. We won't worry about it. It's not the way it is right now. It's very simple. That's a nice Snapdragon X2 in the screenshot there. Now, I don't know if that's an X2 or not, but I'm using that as an example. That's a nice Snapdragon X2 in the screenshot there. I like that. I could use that. That would help me. I can't afford it. That's where we are. And I think these companies need to wake up to that. Now, I'm not saying cut your prices, because to your point, I realize they have suppliers, they have bills to pay. I'm not saying cut your prices, but I think you need to understand, what are you willing to make off of that? What are you willing to, would you rather have, my dad always said, son, you would rather have 2 slow nickels than 1 fast dime. It's what my dad always said. Would they rather sell you a laptop and make 30% profit and you be able to afford it than make 75% profit? Eventually we come down to, they got to make money to survive. So how far down do we go before technology says, oh, that $500, that 500% markup, maybe we need to adjust that because we got creditors knocking on our door. We got suppliers knocking on our door, wanting their money for what they made, our PC for, what it was manufactured for. It's going to get ugly, folks. It's already ugly. It's going to get uglier, I'm afraid. Okay. I'm done. I promise.
Let's cheer everybody up.
This is a pain point for me, and I appreciate you folks sticking with me.
We're going to go out on a high note, hopefully, and that's the Xbox Showcase Gears of War E-Day Direct, which is this Sunday, I think you were talking about. What do you want to tell everybody?
Yep, let's do this on a high note here. We've got Sunday, we have an event. It is the double feature annual event, Sunday, June 7th, with a look at games coming from future, or in the future. Boy, I'm still wound up in that last story, I guess. From games in the future from Xbox publishers and independent publishers. And following the game show, we're getting an direct look into the next version of, guess what? An Xbox staple, Gears of War. So we don't know what we're getting, but every time that we've had these E-Directs after the summer game show here, or it's Game Fest, you get a new game. It was Starfield one year. I don't remember what last year's was. This year, it's Gears of War. Please, please, please give me another Gears of War. I'll be glad to take it. You can watch this on all of the Xbox official social channels, youtube.com/Xbox, twitch.tv/Xbox. It begins Sunday, June 7th, 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and there's some other times there. If you're overseas, you can check out the website and get those. For example, 7 p.m. CEST, 2 a.m. JST, and 3 a.m. AEST, which is technically for you folks June the 8th. So make sure you check that out, see what those new games are. Maybe some gaming can calm your nerves. Maybe it needs to calm mine, and we can have some fun. Get excited about Gears of War coming. Hopefully we'll get whatever's announced later this year. But I'm looking forward to this Sunday. I'm going to take a little time out and make sure I check out the Xbox Game Showcase.
Yeah. And then we got one other gaming thing, which I believe is our end of our wrap up, which is free play days.
Yep, I'm going to knock this out because we've got a lot of games here. So what are we doing? We are celebrating the publisher Rocket Lab. I had never heard, or No More Robots. Excuse me. I've already jumped into titles. Most of their titles do have Rocket Lab. It is the publisher No More Robots is being celebrated for Xbox Free Play Days. Starting today, Xbox players can jump in to select titles all weekend. And as always, as I like to say, grab them for a discount. Now, I think there's 10 of these. So let me kind of run down them real quick. You've got Little Rocket Lab, $13.99. That was down from $19.99. That is a 5-star rated game right now. So that's a good way to start off. We've got Spirit T. That is $9.99, down from $19.99. That is also a 5-star game. Soccer Story. That is $2.99, down from $19.99. That is a 3 out of 5-star game. You've got Descenders Next, which I think we've talked about on a recent free play days when it was up there by itself. That is a game preview, 4 out of 5 stars, $20.99, down from $29.99. You've got Let's Build a Zoo. Now, this sounds fun. Let's Build a Zoo. 4 out of 5 stars. $7.99. You've got a Hypnospace Outlaw. $4.99. Down from $19.99. That is also a 4 out of 5 star game. You've got Slayers X Terminal Aftermath. Vengeance of the Slayer. Big title. 4 out of 5 stars. $6.79. You've got Nowhere Profit. $7.49. That is 3 out of 5. And you've got Family Man, which is $2.99. That is also a 3 out of 5 star title. And your Free Play Days for All is one title this week. Now, just a reminder, Free Play Days for All does not require a Game Pass membership, so everybody can jump in on this one. This is a 5-star this week. Descenders, $6.24, down from $24.99. Now, just the usual reminder, don't miss out on these. Now, I'm going to be fair. I had never heard, I mentioned it in my post. I had never heard of this publisher. I'm sorry. I had never heard of it. The games look good, but make sure you get your discounts over at Xbox.com. You're going to your profile. You're checking out your membership. You're sliding down to Free Play Days. Grab those discounts. There's a lot of good rated games in this that have got some good ratings and some good numbers behind them. I've never played one of them. Like I said, I'd never heard of the publisher. Some of them, from reading them, look to be kid appropriate. So maybe, your kids, your grandkids, can jump into these. There's a couple of these that look very adult friendly, for some adult fun. So check out Free Play Days. This is one of the biggest weeks we've had in a while. Celebrate this publisher and grab yourself some fun.
Yeah. Which games are you going to be playing?
I'm going to try Descenders, and what was the name of the other one? Right up here. Let's see. Oh, Let's Build a Zoo.
Okay.
I'm hoping it looks to be, it says, let out your wild side and create your own animal empire with a cute, expansive management sim. Import, breed rare creatures, hire the right people and staff to keep your visitors happy with plenty of weird and wonderful events. I'm hoping there's part of this that is kid-friendly, and I can get my little niece in here because she loves animals. I like animals myself. So I think we're going to try to build a zoo this weekend. We'll try not to put any humans in the zoo. We're going to stick to animals, but, I think it'll be fun. What are you going to try? You going to build a zoo as well?
I'm not. Ironically, I'm going to be honest with my audience. I'm probably not going to play any of these games because I got fixated on the fact that Gotham Knights is available on Xbox for $8.99. The game usually is
Really?
It's usually $70. The deal that they have on Xbox is $8.99, which is it's a bundled pack at that. And I think it sells for almost $80. And so that is the greatest discount. I've been wanting to play this game for a long time. Now I bought it 2 nights ago. I've been playing it nonstop in my handheld. It wasn't authorized for handhelds, but you can definitely play it. You can play it on the Xbox, but again, it's just to get a 90% discount on a game that's a AAA, of that. I would suggest anybody go run and grab that while you still can, while it's on Xbox, because again, I don't know how many games you can get at this caliber for $8.99. So I'll be playing that this whole weekend. And like I said, I don't know when the deal is going to be over with, but I would suggest anybody who's a fan of any of the, heirs to the Batman franchise, which I believe consists of Batgirl, Jason Todd, Damian, which is his son, and Nightwing. You can play as any of these people, and it's an open world kind of situation with a bunch of great combat. It's a really fun game. So I suggest you guys go out and grab it for less than $10.
I think I'll do that. I'm glad you threw that suggestion in there. I will make sure it gets added to my gaming list.
Okay, where can people find you, hang out with you, talk to you, chat with you this weekend while you're gaming?
You can even fuss at me. I don't care. David PAJ, that is over on the Blue Sky. That is also over on the Twitchers. So feel free to jump over there. I've got a few outdoor activities to do at the first part of the weekend, but the second part of the weekend I should be pretty free because it's going to be nice and warm outside. So I think I'm going to kick up the AC, grab some snacks, and enjoy some of these games for a few hours.
Sounds fun. You can find me at Happy Hulk at Blue Sky, Happy Hulk 1 on Threads. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. Usually my wife tells me the plans. She hasn't told me just yet, but the day is early, so we'll see. But I will definitely find some time to be playing Gotham Knights. We want you guys to, again, reach out to us. If you have any questions about any of the stories you talked about, please feel free to email. I'll leave it in the comment section if you want to as well. We will be back next week with more news. But again, if you want more details, read all of our write-ups. They have more details than those. We will see you again next week. We want you to enjoy your weekend. Go have a drink. Go read a book. Go listen to some music. Go do some artwork if you're an artist. Get to those sketches and doodles that you've been holding off on. If you're a writer, the same thing. Just enjoy whatever it is you do, because again, life is short and sometimes pretty chaotic. But when you can get that moment of clarity of super enjoyment, those are the memories you build. We will see you guys again next week. Thank you for your time.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you very much.